29 years in the Army, and then 16 years as a U.S. diplomat in Nicaragua, Grenada, Somalia, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Sierra Leone, Micronesia, and Afghanistan. I helped reopen the U.S. Embassy there in 2001, and then Mongolia, which turned out to be my last assignment because I resigned from the government over the Iraq War. And since then I've been speaking with my background of having been in the government for so long in the military and as a diplomat, of challenging U.S. policies, a lot of them, particularly the one that gets us into war all the time, and another policy which says that we occupy lands of other people. And as we know, that we have over 800 U.S. military bases around the world right now, 800 of them. We're on the lands of one of the most militarized islands in the whole world, of course, right here on Oahu, where we have 7 major military bases and a total of around 50,000 active duty military and another family population of another 50 to 60,000 people and defense contractors. And as we were talking about, the environment of our whole communities, which has been involved in military things ever since the military got here and right at the turn of the 19th century. The thing that I would like to present is for our continued awareness of all of the places where the U.S. is occupying lands. And we've talked a little bit about it, whether it's in South Korea, where we still have, it's the second largest number of U.S. military outside the United States, with around 30,000 and large military bases there. The Jeju Island, where on behalf of the U.S. government, a pristine area on this island called the Peace Island, Jeju Island, the Peace Island, in one of the most pristine areas of the island, a giant naval base was built primarily for use by the United States, as it's a conduit between South Korea and then going to China and Japan. It's kind of in a triangle. And the trauma that it's caused, as these military bases have caused trauma to the people of Hawaii, their lands being taken in the same manner that we have lands being taken by the U.S. military in other places, and particularly Okinawa, as you were mentioning, your heritage of Okinawa, where it is probably the second most U.S. militarized island in the world, this being the first and Okinawa being the second largest, where we have 80%, I believe it is, of all U.S. military bases in Japan. And that's the second place where the U.S. has the largest military is Japan. But 80% of all of the U.S. bases are on this one tiny little island of Okinawa. And right now there's a giant battle going on with the people in Okinawa who say, do not build a runway for the U.S. Marine Corps that goes out into the pristine waters around Ora Bay and Hanoko, in that area, where for the U.S. Marine Corps, they want another runway, and this will be the 4th airfield that'll be in Okinawa that's part of the U.S. Military establishment, and yet it's being built in a place that has endangered species, the dugong, like a manatee, and specialized corals and things like that. And so the people of Okinawa have been up in arms for decades about this. Unfortunately, our resistance here in the U.S. has not been able to persuade our leadership, our political leadership, that we shouldn't be tearing up somebody else's property. Just like us trying to build a runway straight out here. Although thrown back at us is, guess what you did in Honolulu? The international airport was built right in that same manner. That doesn't mean that we should be doing it to other people. And so you've got the Okinawa, you've got Jeju Island, and when you look at other places within the colonial U.S., where you have Guam, probably the 3rd most militarized island in the world, where the U.S. Marines are moving more people in, and a giant Air Force base there. You look at the U.S. military wanting to use another one of the islands in the northern Marianas, Pagan, a pristine little island that has lived, I mean, it's never had anything bad happen to it until now. The U.S. is going to bomb it just like we did POHAKU, just like we did Vieques. So these are some of the things for us to remember, and as various groups have petitions and campaigns to raise awareness, we ask that you participate in those sorts of things. You know, Italy, you're from Italy, and the U.S. military has many bases still in Italy, and in Sicily we have a testing range, and then a big satellite thing there that's part of the U.S. communications network around the world that's eavesdropping on everybody's cell phones and whatever, you know, our cell phones that have now identified us today as being in this spot with all of these people here. And that's part of what we do, that now the U.S. has a identification system, so all of us, our whereabouts are known wherever our cell phone goes. And right here, the other part of the militarization of Oahu is the giant NSA laboratory and communications facility that's located right here that Ed Snowden used to be a part of.
Yeah. But have you heard anything about the 5G network stuff? Is that related to
the 5G? Well, I'm not too familiar with that, but it's kind of a super G network, and there's a lot of controversy going on about it right now because the U.S. has finally figured out that it's actually the Chinese that have most of the technology on it, and the political leaders are going, how do we let that happen? I mean, now they're going to get all the data we have. And
remember they piloted it in the Netherlands and it killed lots of birds. These particular towers that they need to make 5G. I mean, I assume part of the money behind it is for military purposes. So I wasn't sure if you knew.
Okay, I'm not too sure. It's something that we need to investigate and watch for. Of course, we know that the U.S. military involvement in so many countries around the world that spread into other areas where you may not even think about it. But, you know, we still have over 15,000 troops in Afghanistan, and one of the ways that they get there is flying through Ireland. Now, who has the Irish background? Somebody mentioned Ireland. Yeah, well, Shannon International Airport usually has about 3 to 4 U.S. military aircraft that are coming through there every day. And Irish people are challenging because Ireland is a neutral country, and yet they say, why are we allowing that airport to be used? So all of this is kind of a background of if one believes that maybe we should not have so much militarism and militarization of our societies, what do we do about it? And there are international groups that are working on this. There are conferences that are held. There was just one in Dublin, Ireland, on coalition against foreign military bases. Does anybody know any other country that has foreign bases outside their own country? Are we the only ones? Don't know. Well, there are a few other countries, but none of them have 800. None of them have 100. None of them have 50. None of them have 20. The most is, I think it's France that still has 8, and it's all in their equivalents of Guam and their colonies. Korea has 1. China has 2. Pardon?
The bases they got outside the Philippines that they just created out of the ocean.
Yeah, of the ocean. Yeah, and they also have one. And the places that you don't know about are in the Middle East, where right now that's a battlefield of foreign forces in the island or in the in the country. Well, stay around and listen to this. Did you know in Djibouti, there are 8 countries that now have 4 military bases in that, and that's the place where that's where they get their money now. Djibouti, the national business of the little country, tiny little country right there on the Persian Gulf, is selling out their land to other countries to use it as their military bases. So Japan has a base there, South Korea has a base, China has a base, England has a base, and the United States has a base, right in that one little country. And it's all for operations in the Middle East. So there are ways that if you think we should be lessening our footprint on the world, that the international solidarity of this is very, very important. And Lynette and I were just talking, walking up about the international solidarity of raising the profile of MAKUA Valley and other places in Hawaii, which are talked about in these international conferences. The next conference is going to be, let's see, it's on another island. It's in Cuba. And why would Cuba be concerned about foreign bases on its soil?
It's been occupied for years.
Yep, Guantanamo, the Guantanamo naval base that's now so well known for the horrific prison that the U.S. has had there since 2002. So the next international conference on foreign military bases is going to be in Cuba in the first part of May. And we would love to have a delegation from Hawaii that would go there to make sure that everybody knows that all of the military bases that we have in the Hawaiian Islands. And one of the ones we forgot to mention when we were talking before is Barking Sands. Barking Sands over on Kauai. The missile system that intercepts the U.S. ballistic missiles that we still do tests from Vandenberg, California, and the missiles in Kauai are supposed to shoot it down. Well, have you all heard about the success rate of that? It hasn't been. It's missed 9 out of 10 shots. The next backup is out in another place where we still occupy in the Marshall Islands, on Kwajalein, which is the far end of the Pacific Missile Test Range. So the U.S. has a lot of things. Some of them for our national security. Some of them I don't think help at all for national security. And places like this where there's no reason why this is not part of national security. This is part of a system that operates that if the military ever gets their little fingers into something, they won't give it up unless the people push so hard that the politicians finally say, we can't do this anymore, and Department of Defense, with the largest budget in the U.S. national budget system, that you don't need any more money. You don't need any more money, and you don't need any more land. You've got plenty of it. So it's up to us as citizens to really challenge that and to make it happen. Thank you very much.